All right, guys, if you don't know this yet, there's tons of gold diggers out there who only date men for their money so that they can get entertained for free. So before you go getting emotionally invested in a woman and the idea of a relationship with her, you need to test before you invest to make sure you're not investing emotionally or monetarily in a gold digger who is just trying to take money from you, and that you will end up just losing tons of money too. Now, I use the word invest figuratively there in the monetary sense because no woman is a true investment. There's never going to be a return on investment, but you are also spending a lot of time and energy on women when you're dating them. You're getting invested emotionally in them. So figuratively, it is a good term, and you do want to be honest with yourself that there's not going to be a monetary return when you are investing in a woman, buying her things like a diamond engagement ring. All right. Those diamond engagement rings are marketed as an investment, but they're not. There's never going to be a return on that. You're never going to have any good resale value on a diamond engagement ring. Understand? So let's be honest first and foremost about the term investment and how it gets used in a bullshit way. All right. Diamonds are not an investment. You're never going to sell it for more than you paid. You're going to lose part of that money that you spent. If you have to resell it, you're going to get less than you paid. And in many cases, the woman's not going to give it back to you. If you don't end up getting married, she's going to keep it. All right. So that's going to be a loss. And women are not an investment. Okay. There's never going to be a return. You're never going to get a positive ROI. All right. When you're investing, we're speaking figuratively. You're spending a lot of time, energy, and money dating and forming a relationship with a woman, and you're getting emotionally invested as well. And so you want to manage that investment and make sure your losses are not going to be maximized. All right. You need to do some damage control and minimize the amount of losses. All right. And when it comes to spending actual money on a woman, you need to do a cost benefit analysis and make sure that it's going to be worth it. And like I said, you need to test before you really invest, before you spend certain amounts of money, right, that you would consider to be more than minimal. All right. And before you spend too much time and energy trying to develop a relationship that may not go anywhere and may just result in a huge loss because she's not really that into you and she's just a gold digger who's using you. All right. So let's talk about how to manage those investments and how to test before you invest exactly to make sure you're not dealing with a gold digger. And the first thing that you should do when you are first talking to a girl, probably before you even go on a date with her, is to bring up the word gold digger any way that you possibly can that would sound socially appropriate in the context you're speaking to her in. It could be anything depending on the conversation. All right. So if, for instance, she is demanding that you pay for something, then it would be appropriate to just flat out say, don't be a gold digger. All right, that happened to me with a girl who I had bought a drink for at a club, who then demanded that I buy her a fucking meal. And I said, no, I'm not going to buy you a meal just because I bought you a drink. And she goes, yes, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. Don't be a gold digger. All right. And her reaction to that was good enough for me to keep spending time with her. But it did end up turning out that I would never see her again because that's what she was, a gold digger. She really was just looking for a guy to spend money on her and her entertainment. All right. But her reaction was one that showed me that she did not want to be perceived as a gold digger. And that's what you are looking for here. All right. And in many cases, you wouldn't just say, oh, don't be a gold digger, because it's not going to come up like that. She's not going to be demanding that you spend money on her. At least I certainly hope not. With some of these women these days, obviously, I've been there and you might too. But with many women, especially the really good gold diggers who would really mine you for a lot of gold, they're going to be much more tactful than that. You're not going to have to call them out like that, right? So they're going to be sort of seducing and finessing the money out of you. So you need to do the same when testing them, all right? So whatever way you can that sounds appropriate, bring up the idea of gold digging to see how she reacts, all right? And if she acts like it is, in fact, a bad thing, like it would, in fact, be offensive to her to be considered one, that is a green flag. All right. That's what you are looking for. However, if she turns into a gold digging apologist and starts saying, well, some women do need a man who's going to be a good provider and take care of them. And, and some women do like to be spoiled and be treated like a princess. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is the red flag you are looking for to tell you that you need to turn right around and leave. All right. Any type of gold digging apologism, it's not going to always be those exact words I just said, but if she in any way defends women wanting men to be provided for, taken care of, whatever, starts using these little keywords that are basically synonyms for gold digging that just sound better, they're just nicer sounding terms, then that's the red flag that tells you to hightail it out of there. And some of these women are very good at using manipulative language, all right? So any type of explanation, that's the red flag. So for instance, one woman I met once said, yeah, women shouldn't be gold diggers. They should be goal diggers, right? Women should look for men with goals. All she's saying is that I don't need a man who has money now, but I at least want him to have money later to spend on me, right? I want to know for sure he's going somewhere, right? And I'm thinking, yeah, well, where are you going to be in that scenario? Are you going anywhere with him in life, or are you just going to be hitching your wagon to him? So there's so many manipulative ways they can explain away the need for a man to do these things like, oh, well, I do love a good gentleman, right? Instead of calling the guy a trick, which is what he really is, they might say, I do love a good gentleman who knows how to treat a lady. Or, I do want an old-fashioned traditional man who knows how to be a man and man up. She starts using this gendered language, start talking about masculinity in its idealized form as being a good provider. That's gold-digging apologism, okay? And you need to run when they do that, all right? They have failed the test, and that's just the first way to test them. All right, but the best ones, they're going to pass this test, like that girl who I met at the club who just showed me, yeah, I'm not going to be a gold digger. I'm not going to force you to pay for me. I don't want to be called a gold digger. But then I never heard from her again. Luckily, I didn't invest any money in a potential relationship. She didn't lead me on to think that I could have a relationship with her if I kept paying for shit, right? But I didn't hear from her again because that is what she wanted, right? And the best of them will pass this test and then string you along into further dates. And so that's when the next test comes, all right? If you start paying for dates, taking them out, as many men feel it is their role to do, as traditionally it has been, then you need to test them, because traditionally men were the only ones who had money, and that's why we paid for dates. But these days, women are taking all of the jobs. They're getting more educated than most men, and they're getting higher paid jobs than most men, and they're pushing us out of the labor market. So it really doesn't make any economic sense for men to be paying for all of the dates when women are starting to hold just as much, if not more, capital, right? Now, you don't need to get into a political debate with her, but you do need to suggest that she pay for at least some of the dates. Ideally half, ideally 50-50. And that's the way that I would do it when I was dating women. If I was ever going to pay for a date, I would expect them to pay for the next one. And if they didn't, there would not be another one. All right? And that's what happened with many of the women who I paid for a first date of. I would suggest they pay for the next one, and then there wouldn't be one. So I stopped paying for first dates, and I started suggesting we go 50-50. And still, with many of these women, it wouldn't go any further than that. Maybe they would go 50-50 on the first one, and then I wouldn't see them again. Some of them wouldn't even go on that date with me. And that's how you know they're gold diggers, right? But you don't have to be stingy about it if you don't want to go 50-50, especially if you are the one who has more money in the dynamic, right? It wouldn't necessarily make sense for you to ask her to go 50-50 if you, for instance, make like between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, and she's making like $20,000 to $30,000 a year, right? And you certainly don't want to seem stingy by breaking out a calculator, but you do need to suggest that she at least be paying for something, that she pay for some of the dates, that it not be 100-0, you, her. That makes sense, right? So yeah, take her out for however many dates you're comfortable paying for, but at some point you do want to make sure that she's not using you for entertainment, and suggest that she pay for the next one. And if she shows any sign of being uncomfortable with it, that's the red flag you're looking for that tells you to hightail it out of there. All right. Most women, if you have paid for a whole series of dates, right, and then you suggest they pay for one, they will do it out of obligation, right? But you don't want to let it get that far where you've paid for 10 dates, invested hundreds of dollars you're never going to get back, and then suggest it, right? You should do it sooner than that to test them, to see how they actually feel about it, right? So pay for a couple or a few at most, right? That is if you don't want it to be 50-50, if it doesn't seem appropriate because you have that much more money than her, all right? Do it sooner rather than later, okay? And then, like I said, most women who are tactful about it will say okay. I mean, some of them will even just say okay, but then ghost you because they don't want to have the conversation, but then the date will never even happen, and that's how that's happened to me many times, right? But many women, they won't want to have the conversation, right? And they'll be tactful about it, especially if they're very good at conning men. You know, some of these gold diggers are legitimately con artists, okay? And they will be very manipulative and seductive, all right? And there's this guy, London, who does these gold digger prank videos. And the women who are the most gold digging and con artisty about it, when they see that he has a very expensive car, they offer to take him out to dinner, okay? So some of these women will take you out to dinner because they consider that an investment so that you will then spend more money on them, all right? So you want to keep that in mind. But what you're looking for is not necessarily the wording of her response, but the way that she's saying it, okay? So see her response, see her face and her mannerisms, and if she's actually comfortable with it, all right? If she seems like she's not that comfortable with it, she's just doing it out of obligation, you might not even want to go on that date, okay? Unless she has an explanation like she's struggling, she's going through a hard time financially, maybe she just lost her job, whatever. If you're okay with dating a woman like that who actually needs you to provide for her, that's on you. Especially because, you know, you might want to think to yourself, would she do that for me if I was going through a hard time, you know, if I was in between jobs? Think that to yourself. Consider that before you move forward with that interaction. And then some of the women will be enthusiastic about it because they're con artists and they see it as an investment so that you will then spend more money on them, like I just said. So, you know, watch out for that. But if she sees it as an opportunity to spend time with you and treat you because that's something she wants to do for someone she likes and who has treated her before, you know, if she sees an opportunity to show you what kind of person she is and how she would use this date to treat you and make the decision of where to take you and what to do and such, and she becomes romantic about it, that's the green flag you're looking for, all right? I've dated women who actually were into me and who would take me out on dates that, you know, that they wanted to do because of the fact that they had the money to do it, they had the interest in me, and they wanted to, you know, take the opportunity to create some sort of a romantic date that we would enjoy and connect over. And things turned out pretty well, at least in the short term with those women, and they never were gold digging. Okay, so pay attention to the cues. That's the second test, all right? And that should tell you a little bit more about what kind of woman you're dealing with. But like I said, some of these women are legitimate con artists, and you're still going to have to test them once again further down the line, all right? Especially if you're continuing to date and develop a relationship and you're starting to see a future, you need to make sure you test this woman before you actually get into a committed relationship and make any commitments to her and invest seriously in her emotionally and in your time and energy and money. Because when it comes to monetary investments, as an entrepreneur, I could tell you, sometimes we entrepreneurs, we have to go all in on certain investments that we make business-wise, right? And then what happens? What happens to the way we are living when we have spent our whole bag on an investment that we are then waiting to see a return on? We have to scrounge, right? We have to scrounge for coins in the couch cushions and pinch those pennies, all right? And a gold digger is not going to want to do that with you, right? She's not going to want to be shopping at a thrift store instead of the designer store. She's not going to want to have to scrounge for those pennies and go to the freaking Coinstar machine and cash them in, all right? And much less, she's not going to want to be the one to have to provide if she has a job. Gold diggers don't want to have a job and be the one to provide. But that's what happens in a relationship, especially if you're married, all right? And it's not just for entrepreneurs either who have gone all in on an investment and are waiting for it to pan out or are in between deals. When you're employed, sometimes you lose your job and you're in between jobs and the same shit happens. You are going to be scrounging for coins and pinching those pennies. And if you have a wife, ideally, she would be working in that time while you look for another job. So gold diggers aren't going to want to do that, all right? So before getting into a relationship, you need to run that kind of scenario by her. And you don't do it as a hypothetical. This is what London, who does these gold digger pranks, does and is wrong, is that he'll just tell these women about this potential scenario. Like, what would you do if I lost my job and I was in between stuff, you know, and you had to work? The best gold diggers who are con artists will just say, oh yeah, I would totally be there for my man. If he was a good provider, you know, all the other time, I know that, you know, that this is just temporary and da-da-da. Look, any gold digger can fucking tell you what you want to hear when you field a hypothetical situation by her. What you need to do is tell her that it's real. Okay, I learned this the hard way from it actually being real. All right. When I was still sort of getting started with my company almost 10 years ago, I was in like third or fourth year, and it still wasn't really that profitable. And I had made enough profit to move myself out to Vegas, but I wasn't doing that great yet. I was just getting myself situated and established in Vegas. And I had this girl I was dating who moved in with me and was living with me for a few weeks, totally rent-free. I was taking care of everything, all of her needs, all right, monetarily and sexually, of course, and emotionally and everything. And she was just basically living it up with me while I worked. And she just, enjoyed the luxuries of that, of the fruits of my labor. And then one day I realized the rent was due, and I was like in between deals or payments or something, and I wasn't going to have enough in my account by the day the rent was due, all right? And I was going to have a payment come through a few days after that. And I was like, well, good thing I have someone else living with me who ought to take on at least some financial responsibility when I am in a time of need, especially during that. Up until now, she had been living with me rent-free in Vegas, living the high life off of the fruits of my labor. And she says she loves me, claims to want a future together indefinitely. So, of course, I told her, my supposed partner, about my situation and asked her if there was anything she could do to temporarily help me cover the rent until my next payment comes through. And this is where things get interesting. She had previously worked as a cam girl and made pretty good money doing that pretty easily. And it was fun for her. So she told me yes, but I could see in her face that she was uncomfortable with it. Not with the idea of camming again, which she said that she loved and she had only stopped doing because her last boyfriend didn't like the idea of it, right? It was something she actually had wanted to get back into, right? She didn't like the idea of me not being a full provider and her not being able to like make money and then keep her own money, right? I could tell that she was uncomfortable with it, but she did it. She went to her little campsite and camped for, I don't know, a couple or a few hours. And in that time made almost, or maybe exactly the full amount of rent that we needed, right? She made a huge amount for just like a few hours work, if it was even a few hours work. Like I just remember her making an astonishing amount of money so fast doing the camming and, thinking this isn't going to be an issue, right? And, so she paid, the majority of the rent. I put in some money, and then when my payment came through a few days later, I paid her back. Probably not all of it. I think I paid her back at least. I made it so that at least I was paying half, right? But I said, if you want to be living here, it would be great if you could contribute, especially considering that obviously making money for you is something that you could do much more easily and quickly than I can. Right? So I didn't pay for the full rent. Like, I had her cover half, right? And again, she knew it was fair, said it was fair, but I could tell there was this discomfort in her face that she didn't like it. She didn't like the idea that I wasn't going to be providing 100%, that my money wasn't going to be ours and her money wasn't going to be just hers, that she was going to have to contribute anything at all, right? That it was going to have to be 50-50. Oh, God forbid, right? So again, being a good gold digger, she agreed, but I could sense the cues, the facial mannerisms and the emotion in her face. I could tell she didn't like it. And what happened? Sooner rather than later, we split up because I wasn't enough of a provider gold mine for her to mine for the gold she so coveted, being the Las Vegas cam girl that she was. All right, so that's the sort of sign you want to look for. And so how you do this is you say to a girl, hey, I got a financial transition here going on where I'm in between payments and I got a bill due before my next payment. Or if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're an employee somewhere, tell them that there is a problem with payroll or accounting or whatever, and that your payment is not going to go through on time, okay? That they need to fix the accounting error. And ask, could you help me out just temporarily, just for a couple of days, right? It sounds so reasonable when you say it like that, right? A couple of days, a woman who is supposed to be your partner or developing a partnership with you, a girlfriend, someone who's developing a relationship with you, should not have a problem with that. And in fact, paying her back in full is only something you should do if you make a lot more than she does and you're not like fully committed and living together and everything yet. But if things are really supposed to be equal, then you should only pay her back half, like I did, right? I mean, that sounds logical, doesn't it? Because it sounds so reasonable, she probably won't say no. I mean, some of them will. Some of them will say no, and the relationship will end right then and there. Some of them will say, okay, but you need to look for the signs that she really doesn't like the idea of having to help contribute to the life you are supposed to be building together as partners. All right? That's the sign of displeasure in their eyes. That's the sign that they truly are gold diggers and they are actually just conning you with manipulative words, as many of them are. And you will see that they don't like having to pay for things that you guys are doing together. All right, so those are the 3 main ways to test women to see if they're gold diggers before investing in a relationship with them. And unfortunately, with many women, they're not going to like it, and the relationship is going to deteriorate right before your eyes. Maybe not instantly, but over the next conversations that you have, or the upcoming days, or maybe weeks. But their true colors will show. If they want to be your partner and contribute to building a life together, they will not have a problem with doing so. They will do it with the right attitude and the right emotions showing through. Otherwise, they won't do it, or they will feign interest in continuing to date and develop a relationship with you, when in reality, you will be able to see if you are perceptive enough, if you're reading their expressions and their mannerisms and those social cues, and you're practicing that social intelligence and intuition. You will see that they are just being manipulative and putting up a facade and a mask of being a good girlfriend, saying what you need to hear and doing what you need to do, taking the right actions, using the right behaviors, when in reality, their attitude, where their mindset is showing you that they don't like having to do that. Okay? Watch for that, all right? Because a woman's words and actions can be deceitful, right? But you will be able to see the truth in her eyes and in her face. All right? Even if she's smiling, you should be able to see a fake smile, because it doesn't smile with the eyes. All right? So don't let yourself get tricked and conned by gold diggers. Test them, and don't just listen to their words for them to tell you what that you need to hear, do what you need them to do. Make sure that they actually don't have any psychological problem doing it, that they have the right attitude, all right? That they are being emotionally supportive and, are showing that they actually want to build with you, all right? Because I've had girlfriends who are like that, who don't care when you are between jobs or when you have no money temporarily, right? And they actually want to be there for you and show you that they are girlfriend material or wife material and are going to be a good partner and help build with you. All right. Most women won't, but once in a while, there will be a girl who will actually enjoy the opportunity to step up and be a good partner and build a relationship with you. All right. That's the green flag that you are looking for, but you are not going to get that most of the time. Most of the time, you give these tests to women, they're going to show you that they don't like having to be a partner in building a relationship when it comes down to the nitty-gritty brass tacks of, oh yeah, things cost money. Building a life together has to do with things like economics, right? And sometimes a woman has to contribute. And it should ideally be 50-50. All right? It doesn't have to be something where you are doing everything tit for tat, but she should actually be enthusiastic and interested and inspired by the idea of contributing to building a relationship. And you will be able to see that in her eyes when she does it. Okay? You'll be able to see that sense of romance in her eyes, where she's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this now because she actually wants to, because she loves you. You'll see that love in her eyes, that want to do these things that will actually bring you two closer together and, help build the partnership she wants to have with you, and show that, that this isn't just a casual thing you guys are having, that this is serious, that you guys are building a love relationship, a bond, a partnership, maybe even marriage. All right. So make sure you do your due diligence. Use these tests. and use your social intelligence and intuition to get a sense of who you are really dealing with here so that you do not fall prey to any of these gold-digging con artists. All right, guys, and if you have any questions or you'd like me to do an even deeper dive into detecting gold diggers, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, good luck out there.